Best news I've heard in a long time, straight from Hubert Davis's mouth. Elliot Cadeau is knocking down shots all over the place. That ceiling, baby, it's the roof.
You are Locked On Tar Heels, your daily podcast on the UNC Tar Heels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, what's up? It's Monday, October 7th, 2024. Welcome into the Locked On Tar Heels podcast. It's the only daily North Carolina show out there. I'm your host, Isaac Shade. You're joining me at the place to get your Carolina content every single day. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Thank you so much for making us your first listen or watch. And a special shout out goes to all the everydayers joining us, all the members of the Locked On Tar Heels Discord, and of course, our great Locked On Tar Heels insiders. Let's get after it. This show is brought to you today by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and redeem code Locked On College for $20 off your first purchase. Going to be a fun show today to kick off a brand new week. We inch closer and closer to the tip-off of the college basketball regular season, literally 4 weeks from today, but we got college basketball from the Tar Heels coming even sooner than that. We're going to talk about that on the show, and it's coming one day sooner than we initially thought it was. For those who have been keeping tabs on recruitment stuff, no news on Caleb Wilson yet, other than he was posting a bunch of stuff this weekend, but there is no official commitment news out of Caleb Wilson's camp. As for the actual show today, a bit of an awkward press conference on Friday with Coach Hubert Davis, but some great content came out of it. We'll share that. There are changes to the blue-white scrimmage. I'll update you on that and my takeaways from that. And then we will talk some about football and what needs to happen with them. If you would like fuller football coverage, you can go check out the live postcast that we did Saturday after the game, one of our therapy sessions, unfortunately, the third week in the row. And of course, we'll have our Shady stat of the game and the weekend whip around, all that coming at you. Okay, on Friday, Carolina held a media day, multiple players available to chat, as well as a press conference with Coach Hubert Davis. Michael Coe was there, and he and I are actually going to join forces on the show tomorrow. He's going to hop on with me, and we'll unpack some of that, his takeaways, things he saw and heard. As for today, aside from the awkward Art Chansky conversation about the front court, go check that out if you didn't see it. I want to give you what, for me, were the three biggest single takeaways from that press conference with Coach Davis, because what we're always looking for is things that aren't coach speak. What are things that a coach says that you can read between the lines, or that it's like, oh, that is very telling. So I've got three things that for me were big time takeaways from this press conference. Number one of the biggest questions coming into this season is Elliot Cadeau's growth, specifically with shooting chiefly, so that he doesn't get played off the court as he did in the Alabama Sweet 16 game and other things, but that is the big one. And so Coach Davis was asked, hey, Coach Davis, how would you assess Elliot Cadeau's progression this offseason? This is literally the first couple sentences out of his mouth. I'll quote it to you. His progression has been huge, but I would say specifically in two areas. Number one, he's just knocking down shots all over the place, and the confidence as a result of that hard work that has been put in this summer. That is what I need to hear from this man's mouth, that Elliot Cadeau, quote, is knocking down shots all over the place. Now, in the same breath, hear me say that we all know Coach Davis is given to a little bit of hyperbole in his press conferences, and we all understand that. But you've seen it in the videos, and then to hear the head coach confirm it is massive for the Tar Heels, because Elliot Cadeau has it all already in terms of playmaking, thinking ahead, athleticism, getting to the rim. But if he can add the true and honest shooting to offset all, or to complement is actually a better word there, to complement all of that, then it puts Carolina in a threshold that they otherwise would not have been in. Because if all we got to do is play Elliot Cadeau's drive and or pass, then that's pretty easy. But if we have to now start respecting his shot, oh, by the way, along with RJ Davis's shot and Cade Tyson's shot and whatever Jay Wash is going to do as a lob threat, and, any of those things, and Ian Jackson or whoever's at the three, whatever that's going to look like, If Elliot Cadeau is more of an offensive threat from a shooting standpoint, that changes the outlook and what the possibilities of this season are. And so this is great news from Hubert Davis. I love this right off the top. The second thing he talked about was Elliot's leadership, and I want to acknowledge that as well, because that is critically important for this team. When you have an RJ Davis who is not a natural leader, when you don't have someone in the ilk of Harrison Ingram or Cormac Ryan last year that were more natural in that vocal leadership, in that the guys who would hold teammates accountable, have that edge. If Elliot can step into more of that, man, that's great news as well for Carolina. And also, Coach went on to talk about the camps he had done this summer, like at Hargraves Community Center. Just neat stuff that Elliot was able to do to be a contributor to society. And you love that. That's what we're trying to do with these young men. So my first big takeaway, Elliot Cadeau making shots all over the place, as Coach Davis said, changes the trajectory of this season as long as it holds up. Number two, Coach Davis was also asked about Ian Jackson, and his answers were the things you would expect. He said, quote, he's gifted. His ability in the open court to do a number of different things is real. The speed, the athleticism, the ability to attack the basket, and the ability to shoot from three. He's always loved to play up tempo and pace, and it's one of the many reasons why I think he decided to come here. But it's this last sentence from Coach Davis that to me is the most critically important, and is yes about Ian, but is more about, again, we're reading between the lines and trying to put together the pieces of what to expect. It's this last sentence that is the most important. Hear me. Quote, so Ian is going to fit in great out there on the floor with Elliot and Drake and Seth and RJ, and all those guys will be on the floor a lot at the same time. Now, he's not saying that fivesome of Elliot, Drake, Seth, RJ, and Ian. Gosh, let's get wild. Why not? But what he's saying is you need to be on the lookout for more than we've already had 3-guard and 4-guard lineups. And that would mean some combination. Even last year, there were times where we would see Elliot, RJ, and Seth all on the floor together at 1 through 3. So now you add Ian and Drake into that mix. And I expect, again, we've been prognosticating about this all off season long, and now you're hearing it as we get into the season straight from the horse's mouth, that this is going to happen. So the 3 returning backcourt guys plus the 2 highest rated freshmen, the 2 kind of backcourt and wing freshmen, as you think about Drake, we are going to see that happen. So be ready for it. We just got to see what percentage that is. That's what I'm curious to see, is not if it happens, but how often it happens that we get more 3-guard and 4-guard looks. So be on the lookout for that. That's my second big takeaway. Third thing was Coach was asked about what's going to happen at the 4. I think it was Adam Smith from Inside Carolina that asked Coach Davis about this. And basically he was saying, was asking it in the context of Cade Tyson, and was asking, hey, last year you utilized Harrison Ingram, a 6'7" guy at the 4, and basically it worked. Do you imagine you'll do something similar with Cade Tyson? It was kind of a brilliant way to frame this question. Adam did a great job with that. So Coach Davis says that's a possibility. One of the many things that I do like about this team is the versatility in terms of lineups. Blah, 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 blah. Here's where it matters. Cade at Belmont played a number of different positions, but, and I've said this before, that's what I recruit and that's what I coach. It is positionless. I want guys to be able to make impact plays in many different areas on both ends of the floor. And here's your more direct answer about Cade at the 4. So Cade at the 4, that's definitely a possibility that could be out there on the floor. It gets more interesting. Drake at the 4, that's a possibility that could be out there on the floor as well. And so he goes on to talk about we could be big, we could be small, this, I like that. Yay, great. Your biggest takeaway from that is all the speculation we've done about all offseason long. Can Cade Tyson play the 4? Will we see Drake go up to the 4? Yes, absolutely. And he mentioned both of them by name. And that's not to mean that you won't have Jae'lyn Withers playing the 4, etc. But this tells me that more often than not, it will be a small ball lineup, kind of going back to that previous thing in the Ian Jackson answer. More often than not, it's going to be Cade Tyson or Drake Powell at the 4. And that's very interesting to me. Again, similar question. What's the percentage of that going to be as opposed to like a more typical four you might think of, like a Jalen Withers, etc., for example? But I'm encouraged by this because this has been my hope. I know there's been a lot of people that have said, man, Cade can't play the four. What are we talking about? He can't defend that, etc., blah, 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 blah. Yeah, but he's going to be a mismatch on offense. And if he can hold his own on defense, if he can get to the rim and do things like that, both offensively and defensively, as long as he can hold his own, Carolina's in a great shape. And Drake clearly can, with his wingspan is going to allow him to play the four. And so I'm just very interested to see. These are going to be unique lineups at a more consistent level than we've seen, and unlike anything that Carolina has typically done. What's that going to look like? I don't know yet. Is Carolina going to be just severely out-rebounded? Maybe. But Coach Davis continues to harp on that rebounding that has to happen. And if you're not doing it, you're out. If you're not running, you're out. And so be on the lookout for this. So that was my three biggest takeaways from this whole thing. Elliot Cadeau's hitting shots everywhere. Ian Jackson, along with RJ, Seth, Elliot, and Drake, you're going to see a lot of them on the court together. And then both Cade Tyson and Drake Powell are definite possibilities for who will be at the four. So we're going to be on the lookout for that. And again, if you want to go hear the awkwardness that was the conversation with Art Chansky, where he told Coach Davis that he was dodging his question and all that back and forth, just go check it out. You'll find it on YouTube. Now, as expected, as we talked about last week, the plans for the blue-white scrimmage upcoming this weekend are now changing. I want to get you updated on that, make sure you have the details, and also tell you kind of my takeaways from these changes and what I think it means. We'll get to all of that in just a second. Right after I tell you about LinkedIn, when you're hiring for your small businesses, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you got to check out LinkedIn Jobs, which has the tools to help find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just some job board. They help you hire professionals you can't find anywhere else, even those who might be searching or really aren't searching, but might be open to just that perfect role. In a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit the other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong spot. Over 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. So hire professionals like a professional on LinkedIn. LinkedIn knows that small businesses are wearing so many hats and they might not have time or resources to hire. So they're trying to help you out and make it more efficient. For example, they're just always trying to find ways to make it easier. So recently they launched a feature that helps you write job descriptions, making that process even easier and quicker. So come on, man, post your job for free right now at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Again, that's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Coach Davis's press conference was on Friday. Also on Friday, the Tar Heels announced that there were going to be some changes, as expected, to the blue and white scrimmage. As a reminder, this scrimmage was to be played at in Cherokee, North Carolina, at the Harrah's Resort. And our speculation, Coach Rob and I talked about this on the show last week, was that it's probably logistically a nightmare to try to pull this off. And maybe you could technically do it, but it would just be more trouble than it's worth. But B, it would just be a bad look to go down and do it. You've got people struggling, dealing with big real life things. And here come the Tar Heels in parading and doing all this. And it just wouldn't be thoughtful or conscientious. So from both that feasibility standpoint and that conscientiousness standpoint, you just simply cannot play that scrimmage in Cherokee, North Carolina in October of 2024. As the press conference from the Tar Heels says, the cancellation was mutually agreed upon by the Tar Heels and the event organizers. Great job by North Carolina. This is the right decision. So what is the new plan? Let me go ahead and make sure you've got the logistics for this. The date was initially supposed to be this upcoming Sunday, October 13th, my son's 9th birthday. How fun is that? Now it has been shifted back to Saturday, October 12th. Time, if I remember correctly, it was supposed to be noon in Cherokee, and now it is kind of a floating thing, but I love it because Carolina, as you're probably aware, hosts Georgia Tech in football on Saturday. That kick is at noon, and the basketball scrimmage is going to take place 45 minutes after the conclusion of the football game. This is brilliant. It's such a good thing. And if I remember correctly, this is actually what used to happen with the blue-white scrimmage. It would always occur on a Saturday in the fall, on a home football Saturday, and then you play right after the game is over. This is awesome. More of this, please, and thank you. So clearly, it's now an enticement from North Carolina's athletic department to say, hey, you're coming to this football game, or maybe you're just coming to campus to hang out and be around. Why not come to this scrimmage right after the football game, whether you were at the game or not? It just makes a ton of sense. So 45 minutes after after the conclusion of the football game. Place, obviously, as we said, was in Cherokee, North Carolina. Now it's just simply going to be in the Smith Center. And that is the right shift. It's the easiest logistical thing on short notice. And there you go. As for tickets, how do I get in? It's just $10. And those tickets, by the way, go on sale tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. on goheels.com/ticket. So make sure you're ready for that. And you don't have to, you just got to get a ticket. You don't have to, be first in line or whatever, because it's all general admission, $10 tickets. What's neat about it is, we had mentioned Carolina needs to move where this is happening, but also similar to how the Memphis scrimmage is going to be, or Memphis exhibition is going to be for charity, which the NCAA allows now. Carolina's got to figure out a way to make this for charity to help support what's going on with the hurricane relief efforts. And that's exactly what's happening. All proceeds are going to be directed to hurricane relief efforts from all those $10 ticket sales. Now, you might be a little like, I had already bought a ticket to the event in Cherokee. What do I do? Great question. Glad you asked. Carolina says all you got to do is bring the receipt from that and show it at the gate, and you will be let in free. Also, UNC students, if you're checking this out, you just got to have your one card, and you will also get in free. And what's cool about that is Carolina will cover that cost for you, but then also include that cost in what's going to the hurricane relief efforts. Man, that's just the right thing to do by North Carolina. Absolutely the right call in this. So again, Saturday is the new date. This Saturday, 45 minutes after the football game is over in the Smith Center, $10 to get in unless you already had a ticket, and then it's free. Can't beat that, man. Go check out the Tar Heels. See what you've been waiting on. This new look Tar Heels, I've kind of been calling them. I love it. So I think Coach Davis was quoted in the press release, and there was to me a lot of wisdom in what he said. Quote, our number one concern is the safety and well-being of the thousands of people who were affected by the storm, and we didn't want to add to their challenges by trying to play a basketball game in Cherokee at this time. Just so thoughtful and mindful by him. And you wouldn't expect anything less, because that's the man that Hubert Davis is. He goes on, we had some discussions about keeping the date to help restore some normalcy, but there is nothing normal about the tragic circumstances people in the area are facing every day. Okay, here's what he's saying by this, and I'm so glad they thought in this way. Think about post 9/11. After 9/11, we were trying to figure out at what point do we bring sports back? At what point do we bring SNL back, for example, being in New York? And I vividly remember Lorne Michaels and like the chief of police or the chief of the fire department for New York standing on stage during the monologue of the first SNL afterwards. And, they kind of had some conversation about like, hey, is it okay for us to come back? Is it okay for us to be funny? And it was this beautiful moment of levity where the fire chief or the policeman, forgive me, I forget which it was, says, why start now? Meaning you've never been funny. Why try to be funny now? But it was this perfect moment that cut through at the right time to say, hey, it's okay, New York, we can reopen. Let's get this thing going. We have baseball going, all of that kind of stuff. And it's just hard to know when is the right time to get back to trying to establish some level of normalcy. And so I'm glad that Hubert Davis and the staff and the athletic department didn't just say, this will screw it all up if we go. We just shouldn't even think about it. I appreciate so much that they said, actually, could this be a way that we actually help bring some level of normalcy as everything else is bonkers? ultimately, I think it was the wise and right decision to say no, but it's so wise and discerning that they thought to think that. Does that make sense? Yes. And then the last thing Coach Davis said, we plan to bring our team to Harrah's and Cherokee another time when the conditions are right. He also talked about this in his press conference of saying, basically, we used to have the barnstorming tour after the season was over. We would take the Tar Heels around the state so people didn't have to try to come to Chapel Hill. And basically, this is a way we think we can do that in the preseason. And so I interpret Coach Davis to be saying, what we want to do is have a scrimmage like this, but instead of you having to come to the Heels, we want to take the Tar Heels to the Tar Heels. And what I mean by that is we want to take the Tar Heels basketball team to the Tar Heel family, kind of going around the state. And so I think that is pretty cool, to be able to go to Cherokee or to out to the beach or wherever else in North Carolina and take the Tar Heels to places where they might not otherwise be. The con to that is you're not getting them in the Smith Center. And I know I think a lot of people personally would miss that and are loving this. Like, I think I don't know if it's even possible. I would love to see Carolina do some sort of blue-white scrimmage on a fall Saturday after a football game, like what's going to happen this week, and something else. I don't know if that's NCAA allowed or not, but I think that would be great to do something at home and do something on the road, a little Tar Heel road show. So that would be interesting to me to see about moving forward. Could they do that? Now, my anticipation is if everything's good in Cherokee next year, next year will be when the Tar Heels go to Harrah's. It just makes sense to follow up that next year. A great way to support communities rebuilding there in the western part of the state. And so I think that's what it's going to be. And then after that, if it's what I said, take the Tar Heels to the Tar Heels, that would be really neat. But again, balanced with, I do think there's something to doing it at home on a football Saturday. So all in all, I love that something is still happening. I'm glad they didn't just cancel this altogether, but the change, again, is the right thing. And the other thing I like about this is now that it's Saturday instead of Sunday, it is one further day removed. Because remember, the Memphis exhibition game is next Tuesday, right? As of today, we're 8 days away from that happening. And so instead of Sunday and then turning back around and doing it on Tuesday, which is ultimately like the NCAA tournament, just give the guys a little bit more leg breath before we get into it. Now, speaking of football games Saturdays, I know it feels like the football world is falling all around us because the Tar Heels haven't been able to do it the last 3 weeks. But this football season is not done. However, something has to change now. And we want to talk about that. Plus, I got the Shady stat of the game and the weekend whip around. All of that coming up for you in just a second. Right after I tell you about Game Time, going to live events is the absolute best. Like, think about this Saturday. You can go to the football game and then go to the blue-white scrimmage. And I tell you, man, I'm looking so much forward to making new memories this college sports season. Well, great news. When you're getting tickets for this year, Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. What happens is Pix filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on the best seats so that you don't have to waste your time wading through all the fluff. So whether it's Game Time ticket coverage, the lowest price guarantee, or the panoramic views from your seat in the app, Game Time has got you covered. Like I said, 4 weeks from today is the tip-off of the regular season. Carolina is hosting Elon. Great deal, an upper deck sideline seat, section 209 row Q for just $36 each. I think that's a great deal getting in the door. If you don't want to spend quite that much, cheapest ticket I found was $21 to get in. And reminder, you can take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege, and you get $20 off. So you could get to this game for $1. Again, create an account and redeem code for LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Download the Game Time app today. What time is it? It's game time. After losing to both James Madison and Duke, Carolina has now also fallen to Pittsburgh, the first time ever at home doing so. And we need to take stock of this situation because the Tar Heels got off to a 3-0 start, including winning at a Big Ten school at Minnesota. They're 0-3 since the first 3-game losing streak since 2019, the first season of Mac Brown 2.0. And I want to use that situation to just shed a little hopeful light on the rest of this season. Because that season, Carolina did wind up getting to bowl eligibility, and they spanked Temple in the Military Bowl 55-13, which, by the way, was the last time and the only time in Mac Brown 2.0 that the Tar Heels have won a bowl game. And so I feel like so many of us look at the situation and we're feeling like, oh my gosh, the sky is falling. It's over. It's done. We can't do anything right. And yeah, man, this sucks. It's painful. It does not feel good, but all is not lost. Yes, this thing, Carolina might not win another game all season. They could finish 3-9 and it would be just the pits. But there are 6 more regular season football games left. Carolina could also be 9-3 or anywhere in between those two records we've just said. And so when you look at this too, James Madison, Carolina just didn't show up that day. That game, it's done and over, and there wasn't a hope. But the 2 ACC losses since, Duke and now Pittsburgh, Carolina could very easily have won those games and been 5-1. And it legitimately feels like it's just a couple plays in the other direction that if they would have gone that way, Carolina would be 5-1 or maybe 4-2. And so to me, it's not as doomsday, Chicken Little, the sky is falling as a lot of people are making it out to be. Yeah, again, it's not good right now. No, you can't lose these games. You should not. But it also doesn't mean that everything is done and gone and lost. But hear me say this. If there is going to be a change, it's got to happen now. And it is a multitude of small things that got to add up to big things. And part of the reason it has to happen now is because Carolina's 3-3, and there is something psychologically damaging about going under 500 and being 3-4. And so the difference in being 4-3 and propelling yourself on feels a lot different than 3-4. So what you've got to determine now is how to turn those things around. Because as I said on Saturday in our live postcast, and as I've been saying for weeks now, as you look ahead at the schedule, there is no obvious win, but there's no obvious loss. There is no game that seems hopeless, and there's no gimme. And so this means that every single one of these final 6 games is going to come down to the team that either makes the fewest mistakes or the team that makes more winning plays at key critical times, like a Caleb Cost pick 6. You just needed a few more of those types of things to happen, some of which are just going to be happenstance week to week, right? Like you're not going to get a pick 6 every week, but there are little things like that you can control that flip things around, whether it's communication or whatever it is. And I know that sounds like, well, duh, Isaac, the team that limits their mistakes and makes the small plays is going to win. Yes, exactly. But with this team particularly, the margin is so razor thin that Carolina's just got to keep making those little things that get them over to the correct side of that. Carolina can get this thing figured out. There's still hope, but they've got to keep working. They've got to lift each other up. They've got to hold the locker room. You cannot lose the locker room. You got to keep being accountable to one another and making sure everyone's getting that extra rep, that doing all the logistics right of whatever rep you're getting at, all of that kind of stuff. And this week, it's not just about the need to fix the season. It's about Georgia Tech, for crying out loud. Can we please beat the stinking Yellow Jackets? So that's where it's at. It can happen, but it's got to happen now, and it's got to be against Georgia Tech so that Jeff Collins can also be happy. Oh, by the way. All right, that's going to lead us to our Shady stat of the game. And I realize I've been messing up the juju the last couple of weeks because I've not been wearing my shades, my last name, for the Shady stat of the game. So I apologize for messing up the juju, but look, I'm wearing them now, and here we go. If you're listening and not watching, you can bet your bottom dollar I've got on my sunglasses. Okay, here we go. Shady stat of the game. Usually, here's another thing I'm going to flip. A lot of times after a loss, it's a negative stat of the game. I'm going to make this one happy. Maybe that'll help flip the juju as well. Omarion Hampton, 106 rushing yards. And with that, North Carolina has rushed for 100 or more yards in each of the first 6 games of this season. That's just the second time in program history. I said that wrong. I said it like the Tar Heels as a team. at least one Tar Heel has rushed for 100 or more yards in all 6 games this season. Obviously, Omarion wasn't able to against what would that have been, Charlotte, when he had to come out injured. I think he had 77 in that game, but then Bullet Goss came in and did that job himself. The only other season that happened in program history was 1983 being the other. So Carolina has a chance to keep pushing that forward. But also pertaining to this year, Carolina is the only FBS program that's had a 100 or more yard rusher in every game of their first 6 games this season. That's incredible. In Carolina, I mean, there's no reason that cannot and should not continue, but it also speaks to the frustration as I take off my Shady stat of the game sunglasses, speaks to the frustration of the inability to fully and completely complement that with the passing game. If those two things can get dialed in together, there's no reason this team cannot win football games. All right, weekend whip around of some other things that are happening. As a reminder, around Carolina fall sports, field hockey is first in the nation, and both soccer teams are third in the nation. One's probably going to either stay or go up. Unfortunately, the other's going to go down, and that would be men's soccer, who lost at Clemson on Friday night to number 24. The Tigers won 3-2. It's Carolina's first loss of this season for the men's soccer team. And that game-winning goal, unfortunately, came in the 87th minute. So just last little bit of the game. So we'll see if Carolina, where they move when the new rankings come out. They are home against Charleston on Tuesday. That'll be 7 p.m. Eastern on ACC Network Extra. On the flip side of that, the women's soccer team just continues to dominate. They won Thursday hosting Louisville. That was a 5-0 score. Kate Fossey had her second brace of the season. That's a 2-goal game. So the women are now 12-1 on the season, 5-0 in ACC play, and they now have a 6-game winning streak. 5 of those came with shutouts, just rolling like bosses. Although they might be trumped only by their partners on the field hockey squad. The ladies were out in California this weekend and swept them. Just swept out through Northern California, beaten Stanford on Friday 3-0. That was the 5th straight shutout for these ladies. And then on Sunday, won at number 20 Cal 3-1. The shutout streak ends, but nobody's crying over that. How about Charlie Bruder? Scored on Friday night, one of the 3 goals, and then all 3 on Sunday for a hat trick. A hat trick. That's a weekend. Let's play more out in California, says Charlie Bruder. Man, crazy stuff. So the women are now 8-0 this season. As a reminder, they're number 1 in the nation. 5 of those 8 matches, they've shut out their opponents. The other 3 have only scored 1 goal each. So Carolina, in total, is beating their opponents, outscoring their opponents 32-3. Take that, man. It's just fun to win and obliterate people. I just take a lot of joy in that. I hope you do too. Volleyball. They also continue to perform so well in the early part of the season. You might recall that on Wednesday, they swept Duke at Duke. Well, guess what happened on Friday night in Carmichael? Deja vu all over again, as the ladies, just in a different building, sweep Duke one more time. How sweep it is. Yes, I am that corny. So the volleyball team is now 12-1, 4-0 on the season, and have an 8-game winning streak. And they're just keeping these rivalry matches going at NC State on Friday evening. And as a reminder, cross country was off this weekend. So that's your fall sports weekend whip around. Welcome back to a new week of the show. Can't wait to be back with you tomorrow. As I said, Michael Coe will join me, give his thoughts and impressions from the media day stuff on Friday. If you have not yet subscribed to the show, please make sure you do so on video and audio so that you don't miss a second. Hit that bell notification so you'll find out when I'm going live, which, by the way, I will not be able to go live after the football game Saturday. My family's going to be out of town for my son's birthday, doing some things, but also on Tuesday after the game at Memphis. Oh, you best believe we're going live after that, so make sure you tune in for that. If you have not joined the Locked on Tar Heels Insider Program and you just want to go next level deep, please come on and do that, where you can text with me directly one-on-one. You have access to all my stats and charts and data and my record book, all for free for being a Locked on Tar Heels Insider. Man, it's a great opportunity. 2 weeks free to check it out, and then just $5 a month after that. It's a great deal and a great way to help support our show. Also, there's the Locked on Tar Heels Discord, man. That's a great place to be, a healthy place for Tar Heels fans, where we just have great conversation, and man, it is so fun. free to join. The link for that is in the show notes, just like the Locked On Tar Heels Insider Program link is as well. It's always a great day to be a Tar Heel. We'll be back with you again tomorrow, but until then, peace.